Hi, and welcome to today's session hosted by yours truly, 3CLogic. We're going to cover today how to enhance customer experiences with integrated payment processing, specifically focused on ServiceNow as the example CRM. And to help us with today's discussion, we've got our dear friends and experts on the topic from Sycurio here today. Couple quick housekeeping items. Obviously, some of the things that we may address could be forward-looking in nature. We just simply ask that you take that into consideration and make sure to do your own research before making any final decisions. But with that, I'd like to introduce myself first and foremost. I will be your host. My name is Guillaume. I am the Vice President of Alliances here at 3CLogic. And here to help us with today's topic is none other than Matt Taylor. Matt is the VP of Global and Pre-Sales Engineering over at Sycurio. Matt, thanks for joining.
Great to be here.
All right, so we've got a pretty packed agenda, Matt, that you're hopefully going to help us with. Just quick summary of what we're going to do. One, we're going to talk about the state of omnichannel. We're going to talk about the risks and costs to enterprises if you don't really properly address what we're going to cover today. Some of the myths and pitfalls that organizations are relying on and why that may not be a good idea if perhaps that refers to yourselves, for those of you in attendance. Some of the challenges, of course, that enterprises face when it comes to securing payments and processing and transactions. And then, of course, for the benefit of all of our viewers, we're going to do a couple live demonstrations so you get an idea of just how this all comes together in the context of ServiceNow. Again, what we'll be using as a primary CRM and system of record for today's demonstration and discussion. So kicking it off, what is the state of omnichannel today? Well, the reality is that we still live in a very omnichannel world. Organizations are being required to basically be available across multiple channels because customers are choosing to interact and engage across multiple channels. And the most dominant ones you have here on screen are, of course, which should come as no surprise, voice and email as still the primary forms of communication between customers and the organizations they choose to do business with, but as well as digital, online chat, text, SMS, and so forth. Now, we're going to focus primarily on voice today as the primary sort of topic and channel, largely because it still represents over 60% of the transactions in terms of the channel of preference when it comes to customers. The reality is voice is still the most versatile form of engagements. You can handle both simple and complex inquiries. And when it comes to transactions, especially perhaps when it comes to, for example, disputes, it may be the most versatile place by which to have a discussion with an organization before you choose to perhaps process a payment. But we're also going to cover digital channels today, so you can get an idea of where those come into play as well. But before we do all that, Matt, walk us through exactly what is the risk, what is the cost of fraud to enterprises today if they don't take secure payment processing, transactions seriously.
Of course. Yeah, no, great. So I was going to walk you through some high-level stats around fraud and the impact and cost to your business. So we're calling out quite a shocking number. 72% of enterprises and organizations are not actually PCI compliant today. So only 28% of them have actually managed to achieve PCI compliance. A lot of those potentially using Sycurio type solutions to ultimately outsource their fraudulent risk and their issues when trying to become PCI compliant. But that 72%, it's a number that varies. When you look at the market and you look at the PCI guidelines, the rules change all of the time. The original set of guidelines going back many years now was around 100 controls. Today, contact centers more than 400 controls to become compliant. So it's a case of attempting to do that and maybe failing, or maybe achieving it 1 year and then the next year failing the audit because you couldn't keep up with that change of compliance. So the ability to outsource that ultimately to a solution like Sycurio to descope you is a good way to help achieve that. From a fraud risk perspective, in terms of cost of fraud, around 60% of companies report that it's around £5 million is the cost for having a data breach. Again, really, really big number. But more than 20% of businesses say the cost exceeds more than $25 million. Again, huge, huge numbers here as well. And these numbers actually continually grow. And when you look at the bigger impact on fraud or data loss, and you look at things like brand reputational damage and future sales from those customers, once you've had that fraud, that number can just continue to grow. So yeah, I mean, 20% being more than £25 million is a big number there. But even the 60% being $5 million, big numbers. So something just to be aware of. An average data breach in reality is around $4.9 million. Huge number. That number tends to be slightly higher if the breach itself was caused by an insider. So let's say a rogue agent or someone working within the business has helped, or but there may be enabled a fraudulent risk to come into the business. So again, the ability to protect yourselves, make sure you don't have access to the data. Ultimately, if you don't have the data, you can't be breached. All of the really simple messages that would come out from Sycurio are going to help you keep that cost of any fraud at all to a minimum or non-existent. And then finally, when you look at the actual PCI market itself, 26% of businesses, when you look at the market, the difference between actually being compliant and not being compliant is big. And when you have been PCI compliant, you tend to have far less opportunity for data breach. And when you are not PCI compliant, some customers are having 5 or 6 data breaches a year, just simply by having card data in that environment. So you're never going to be perfect and descope everything and not have a breach. I think everyone is always open to a data breach. That's something just to be, I think everyone's aware of that. But I think that you're taking that option and the ability to mitigate that risk, to take those options to ensure if you don't have the data, you can't be breached, makes it far less likely that you're going to have a data breach.
Yeah, I mean, and some of these numbers, I mean, they're pretty telling, right? I mean, they're reason enough alone to really actually, if you're not already using a solution, a secure payment solution like Sycurio, it's reason enough alone to maybe, change your mindset there, and quickly determine how you can in the future. Talk to me about what kind of challenges this creates for organizations. We talked about the financial impact, but what are some of the challenges?
Yeah, challenges from becoming compliant is the impact on our customer experience. I think that's something which nowadays, when we move into the market and you look at the contact center, everything is driven around customer experience, agent experience, and giving the customers the ability to do what they want and need to do. And if you look at the entire contact center market globally, you're looking at a $3.7 trillion risk of bad service. That's ultimately losing business shifting to different businesses, or you simply not transacting. So huge number that's caused by that. And I think with all of the options coming to market now with self-service and bots that can help speed up automation, and the fact that you don't always need to speak to an agent, and you can use those agentless interactions to improve customer experience. All of that is contributing to that. So yeah, poor agent experience is sort of a knock-on effect of trying to become compliant. You potentially could have an impact there. So it's keen to stay on the right side of that. From an audit perspective, again, once you try and become PCI compliant, the cost of an audit can be really expensive. We mentioned earlier on 400 plus controls to secure a contact center, for example, for PCI. If you were to do that and try and become PCI compliant, that's going to cost you anywhere between $30,000 and $200,000 to become PCI compliant. And that's bringing in a QSA to come and audit you. That can be a 2 or 3 week process. But on the back of that, you actually need a InfoSec team to help manage your PCI compliance. So there can be a knock-on effect there as well. I think when you look at disjointed agent experiences, when you look at a 250 seat contact center, the potential knock-on effect there is around $1 million in terms of full-time employee costs. So something just to be aware of around that as well. I mean, when you don't have the adequate agent support, it's just a big knock-on effect for the contact center and the way it runs as well. And then finally, when a customer is looking to engage in the channel of choice, and when they look at doing that, there's a knock-on effect. If you don't have those channels available for the customer, they may go and look elsewhere and engage with another business in that channel that they want to engage in.
Yeah. Yeah, and the reality is, I mean, Matt, we're not talking about any one industry, right? I mean, when it comes to today's topic, secure payments and transactions, I mean, it impacts every industry, right? Every business, whether it's serving the needs of a patient as it relates to healthcare, whether it's serving customers that might be traveling, whether it's serving citizens in a public sector type use case, securing these types of transactions really is industry agnostic. But, highlighting and going back to one of your important data points, which is what the 3 and 4 organizations aren't really PCI compliant. No, I think this is as good a time as any to talk about, one of those myths that organizations may be relying on to keep themselves, at least in their mind, compliant, which is, for voice-based transactions, relying on agents pausing and resuming the call recording to basically use that as a method to, at the appropriate time, stop the call recording so that the credit card information isn't collected. And then, presumably hoping that the agent will remember to start the recording back up after the fact. And it gives this false sense of PCI compliance, this idea that it's foolproof because the agent will, of course, wink, wink, never forget to start or stop the call recording. The idea that it's going to save you operational costs, and you hit on some of the potential costs, if you don't do this correctly. And the idea that, oh, well, this will still keep the call recording available for training purposes because the credit card information or that sensitive data won't be part of it. But the reality is, Matt, this may be overlooking how much is in scope of PCI when you are actually processing payments. Walk us through what it looks like, what's in scope when you're not leveraging a secure payment solution.
Yeah, I think they're just great coverage. I think when you look at the what everything you've just been through in terms of industries, and whether you take one payment or a million payments a year, the rules are the same. It's really, really hard to do. And when you look at pause and resume of the solution as well, everyone just assumes that solves my issue. The contact center, it takes my call recording out of scope for PCI, so that makes me PCI compliant. I think the bigger understanding here is actually how big is those 400 controls that we mentioned earlier on. It's not just I need to solve my call recording. The 400 controls actually covers everything in your entire contact center environment. Your incoming call from the carrier hits some gateways, goes into a VoIP network, which brings your phone system into scope, and that then brings the IVR, your PBX. Ultimately, the call recording is in scope for PCI. So when you are using pause and resume, you remove your call recording from scope, but everything else still is in scope. The agent is in scope, the desktop they're using and entering data into. They may have pen and paper on their desk. That's also in scope for PCI. It goes into a real granular level of detail around what's in scope as well. And finally, the actual payment gateway, completing the transaction with the gateway, receiving the response back. That payment gateway is processing card data. Ultimately, that sits in scope for PCI as well.
And notice the CRM, right? Based on this diagram, your CRM, your system of record, is potentially in scope as well.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people would embed a virtual terminal from their payment gateway within their CRM and when entering card data in. And as soon as you have a connected platform in PCI, yes, straight away you enter that card data into that page. That's inside your CRM. Your CRM is now fully in scope for PCI as well.
All right. So we've highlighted, and maybe for our audience, help them understand just how much this covers and how much you have to protect. Walk us through what a PCI DSS compliant solution might look like and how that protects all the components that you've just alluded to as potentially at risk, if not.
Yeah, when you deploy Sycurio alongside 3CLogic, as you can see on the diagram here, the call's going to get cleaned as we return it in the cloud. So the call hits 3CLogic, interacts with Sycurio before being delivered down to the contact center and the agent themselves, ultimately removing everything below Sycurio from scope. And we sit high enough in that call flow that by the time the call hits the VoIP network, your call recording, your PBX, there is no card data in that audio stream. None of that data is actually bringing the phone system into scope at all. That means the agent doesn't get to see or hear any of the data. The call recording doesn't hear it. And also you don't need to pause and resume that call recording anymore. There is no card data to record. I think we spoke about the payment gateway and completing the transaction there and the potential ability to return a token back to the CRM as well. And something that Sycurio can do out of the box as a standard feature of the product. So when you do return that back to a CRM, the CRM is also fully removed from PCI scope as well.
Excellent. And obviously the CRM that we're using for today's example is none other than ServiceNow. So this is probably as good a time as any to sort of showcase how all this might work between 3CLogic and Sycurio, and more importantly, in the context of ServiceNow. So what you and I have prepared for our audience is actually a demonstration. So I'm going to walk through and sort of set the baseline for everyone here. So we have obviously an instance of ServiceNow. You have the 3CLogic CTI here in the upper right-hand corner. So obviously that's where the telephony controls, computer telephony integration exists. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the role of an incoming caller, calling in and quickly get routed to an agent. And we're going to showcase, with your help, Matt, what that secure payment transaction might look like in a live agent environment, right? So here I am on my phone. I'm going to go ahead and call in. So here comes the call. I'm going to go ahead and accept it. Put things on mute to avoid some feedback. So for our audience, obviously, I'm an agent. I'm in the ServiceNow. In this case, it's the configurable workspace of ServiceNow. The interaction has popped up. I know ultimately that this is a payment-related issue, that the callee is John Smith. I'm here as the agent, George. And what we've done with Sycurio is conveniently embedded the Sycurio payment solution so that for the agent, it is one seamless experience. I don't have to leave the agent workspace, and yet I can process the payment. Matt, walk me through what we have on screen here.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, call came into the ServiceNow and 3CLogic interface, so the agent stays within their single interface here to handle the call. So it keeps it really clean and tidy from an agent experience perspective. The Sycurio page itself is ultimately customized to any of the customer requirements. So Sycurio supports more than 85 different payment gateways today, and that means that this page could look different depending on every single payment gateway that's deployed for a customer. The page itself, though, the key things an agent would be looking for when they need to capture a card payment would be the Sycurio CR number at the top of the screen. And that's a randomly generated number. Think of that as the session ID for the actual page itself. So as a call hits the agent will type that CR into the handset, and that's going to link that session to the desktop. So you'll see to the phone call. So you'll see the secure mode icon at the top of the screen go from red to green to highlight to an agent that the call is now secure. The card number field on the page has become active as well. So the agent's able to see where the card data is going to go automatically when they prompt the agent to enter the data. The other key thing to call out here is the agent and the customer interaction remains active at all times. We're not handing the call off. We're not bringing in an IVR. The agent is able to speak to the customer throughout the entire process of capturing the card data, whilst also being completely removed from seeing it.
I'm going to pretend that I'm a customer here, and I'm going to start entering in my credit card information.
As the card data comes through, the agent and the call recording will automatically hear flat tones, number one tones coming down the line. And you can see here that Sycurio is validating that card in real time. So we identified that as a Visa card as the data is being entered. And you can also see we did a LUN check against the card to validate that in real time to see if it's a valid card number. That's gone green, so valid card number captured. The system automatically moves on to security code on the back of the card. And so the agent can prompt the customer to enter that as well. And then finally, that leaves us with the expiry date. We dropped out of secure mode at the top of the screen. So that means any DSMF tones are now available again for if you're doing any post-call surveys or CSAP certified surveys on a call. So all of that functionality is available again. And now the agent has the expiry date, we're able to submit that data directly through to the payment gateway. And then we instantly get our transaction result back. An approved transaction, that data can not only be displayed on the screen, but that data can also get pushed directly back into your CRM environment as well. So, for example, ServiceNow would be able to see the results, instantly update a customer account in real time with a successful transaction.
Yep. And what I would also highlight is, all that information, to your point, can be pushed into ServiceNow. But when it comes to then, hanging up the call, I've completed the conversation with said customer. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the conversation. What you can see here is an example of what can also be added into the ServiceNow experience, which is the summarization of the conversation, as well as the transcript itself. But of course, thanks to Sycurio, any information that need to be secured, in this case, the credit card information, would have already been or will already be redacted. And so everything is happening in ServiceNow. You've got all the context without the potential for any security or sensitive information being stored in ServiceNow. So all in all, a very seamless experience for both the agent, the administration that needs to oversee these, and of course, to the customer, it's one seamless experience. Right, Matt?
Absolutely. I think the other thing to call out here as well is we've obviously done this with DCMF Zone today, where we've prompted the customer to enter data in over the phone using their telephone keypad. But you do end up with some customers sometimes that may not be able to do that. And they may be driving, for example, and don't have the ability to enter their card data into their telephone handset. So instead, the customer could use our speech recognition platform instead. And the agent would press a short code on their phone, and ultimately the customer would be able to read out their card number in real time. And Sycurio would ultimately deliver that card data back to an agent after the data has been captured. So removing both the agent and customer from scope again, but allowing the customer to transact via voice rather than DTMF.
Yep. And now you mentioned, we had talked earlier about having different options. One of the other things that we talked about is if for some reason you can't process a payment over the phone, there are digital channels and examples as well. So here I am as an agent again, maybe I'm conversing someone over chat. There is the option to then send using 3CLogic an SMS out to the individual. So here's one where it's already sort of set up. I'm going to send them a Sycurio SMS code. I'm going to go ahead and text it to them. And what you'll see here is here's an example of my cell phone very shortly receiving, in fact, the SMS that I just sent out that would have access to the digital equivalent of what we just went through with Sycurio, where the individual can then process through any different means of payment, including credit card, the transaction. And again, in this case, doing it in a digital form, with the agent having the same level of visibility as you would through the voice channel, but in this case, through the digital medium on behalf of the customer. Right, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Digital Link gives you the ability to take a payment in any channel. So SMS being the option today, but whether that's social media, email, we have customers using bots and those sorts of things nowadays to do this, and placing a QR code on an invoice or a bill and posting it to a customer with a scan here to pay option. When the customer receives it, ultimately Digital gives you the ability to do anything you want to, and that's also a benefit when it comes to agentless transactions as well. The ability just to ultimately transact wherever you want to. The pages themselves, again, are customized. They have logos on and URLs with the correct branding on. So, digital payments is just a nice way of complementing voice. And I think is probably our fastest growing product we have on today as our in portfolio.
Yep. So we had talked about different industries, right? How this is relevant to all of them. Walk me through some use cases, Matt. We have a couple here on screen. Walk me through a couple, examples of how this would play out in different industries, how this, serves a purpose and can really actually improve the customer experience. And of course, all the additional incremental benefits for the enterprise using them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at different use cases and you look at different sectors, as I said earlier, whether it's 1 or 1 million transactions, the rules are the same around capturing that card data. And I mean, just using a couple of customer examples, when you look into healthcare and retail, CVS Pharmacy, for example, in the US, use Sycurio to capture car payments today over the phone. There's no need to transfer that call through to an IBR. And the agent is, as we just saw earlier on, they're on live for the customer at all times. They've got the ability to just simply prompt the customer to enter their card data and take a payment there and then on the call. Financial services, Sycurio has multiple banks using Sycurio today. It's that ability to make your loan payments, or you have an overdraft on your account and you need to ultimately clear that balance. It's the ability to speak to an agent in the channel you want to and take that payment as well. Travel and leisure, customers like Emirates or British Airways or TripAdvisor using Sycurio today, ultimately, ordering tickets and things like that. And a customer that we have alongside 3CLogic, a large train company over in Europe, has the ability to ultimately upgrade and pay for their fares and to jump on trains, which is a great use case as well. We have public sector customers sitting in government and paying fines, tickets, and that sort of thing. And then probably insurance, although we do have customers taking for new premium payments and things like that for their insurance services. We actually have quite a lot of debt scenarios, customers or insurance providers chasing debt, where customers have signed up for a service and ultimately they're not paying that balance. So again, giving the customer that ability to engage in the channel of choice, and whether that's automated debt collection using the Sycurio functionality, or whether that's a customer calling into an agent, both of those are use cases deployed today.
Wow. Yeah. As I mentioned, all industry agnostic and all very, very relevant. Um, Tell me about the impact. We've talked about the costs. We've talked about how to get this, how to potentially implement a solution like yours together with 3CLogic in the context of ServiceNow for today's purposes. But walk me through the measurable impact.
Yeah, when we look across our customer base today, there's loads of ways of measuring sorts of the big impact that Sycurio has across the business. And let's probably focus on more of the contact center agent side of things rather than a PCI or an audit side. Average handling time, the ability to reduce that average handling time dramatically. I mean, we've seen some customers with more than 40 seconds. We have a few customers with over a minute average handling time saving when they're handling calls. And that's all down to Sycurio's automated transactions, the fact that we're automating the check of the card in real time and the agents don't need to read that card number back, just speeding the call up for both the agent and the customer. And fast call resolution improvement as well, the ability to ensure you capture that payment first time. We've speak to many customers that before they're using Sycurio, they're not always able to capture that payment on that first call. They may need to go back on a second or third call or make a proactive outbound call. That's all cost, and that can cost up to 5 times the amount to capture that payment as it would if they'd have done it on the first call as well. And time to value, just ultimately transacting quicker is really the main driver behind Sycurio as well, and great from an ROI perspective. And then finally, increased efficiency. When you're using voice, that's great. It does increase the call volume, so great from that perspective in terms of being able to handle more calls a day because the call durations are shorter. But when you put that alongside digital and you have agents in an omni-channel environment and the ability to do SMS and email and handle voice calls, they can handle 2 or 3 times the amount of customers in a day or across a day in that contact center. So huge increase in efficiency, and obviously drop calls as well. When you allow the customer to engage in the channel of choice and make payments in that channel of choice, they're more likely to complete the transaction rather than, again, not pay to make payment, or in some cases, not even call you or try and interact with you to make that transaction. So all things that we're able to track across our customer base today.
Well, you've got me sold. Mac, tell me, for the sake of our audience, especially those who may not be familiar with Sycurio, until today, tell me a little bit about Sycurio real quick.
Yeah, really quick from Sycurio's perspective, we have our voice and digital payment solutions. Digital, as I said earlier, probably our fastest growing channel, and that's really down to the modernization and transformation of a contact center nowadays and the shift into digital. And the voice very much still probably our sort of bread and butter, the ability to take that payment over the phone. So there really are 2 core products today, and speech rec and IVR for automated transactions. That's behind the scenes there. The PCI certified, Sycurio have been a level 1 service provider since the day that we started as a business, and that's ultimately the highest level of PCI compliance you can have. And we go through our annual audits, as you'd expect, to ensure that that compliance is maintained. Across our customer base, we handle more than 5 million transactions a day across our customer base, so huge amounts of transactions, especially if you fit that number across the year. But it's a great number to have. And again, we've got some customers that can do 1 million transactions a day when they're at their peak, so a huge amount of transactions there. We have more than 300,000 agents deployed globally across all of our customer base. Again, some of our customers have got 40,000 channels and 20,000 agents deployed. We've got some customers that have got 5 or 10 agents deployed, so completely across the board mix, but very much enterprise being our standard. And of course, in terms of global reach, we have customers deployed in more than 25 countries around the world. We actually have customers in more than that when you include some of our digital interactions and with the self-service as well. I think we can actually go to over 50. So yeah, good global footprint.
Fantastic. Well, there's a reason why we're partners. And for those of you that don't know 3CLogic, we are an AI-powered contact center platform. And we cover the gamut in terms of all things voice self-service, conversational AI, live agent use cases, intelligent routing, SMS, as was demonstrated to you, and all the reporting, analytics, call transcription capabilities, and so forth that come with our solution. And of course, our solution being very popular as it pertains to our ServiceNow certified integration. So for those of you using ServiceNow in customer workflows or perhaps in IT, managed services providers and so forth, presumably we could be a value add to your ServiceNow implementation. And of course, together with Sycurio, potentially help facilitate what could be a headache for you today. To our audience, thank you for joining. And Matt, most importantly, thank you for bringing yourself and your expertise to the discussion. If anybody after the today's session have any questions or would be interested in really exploring how 3CLogic and Sycurio could be a value-added joint solution for you and your organization, we welcome you to reach out, and you can do so at info@3clogic.com. Again, that's info@3clogic.com. With that said, Matt, any final words?
No, I mean, thanks for having me on today's webinar. Really appreciate that, G, from our side. And yeah, looking forward to working with you and our potential customers moving forward.
Absolutely. The pleasure was all mine. To our audience, thank you again for joining. Stay tuned for more sessions like these throughout the rest of the year. In the meantime, this is Guillaume signing off. To all of you, have a great day. Thanks.